So in the past couple of lessons, we've been taking a look at inheritance patterns. And inheritance patterns, remember, they're just patterns where traits are being passed on from parents to offspring. And we took a look at complete dominance. And to know if a word problem or a Punnett square problem talks about complete dominance, there's only two traits that you're going to see. So for flower color here, there's only two traits, purple or white. For earlobes, you can have them attached or detached. And with those two traits, one trait is always going to be dominant and one's recessive. Now, if the trait is dominant, it's going to be represented with a capital allele or letter. If you have the trait and it's recessive, it's going to be represented by a lowercase allele or letter. Now, another inheritance pattern we've looked at is called incomplete dominance. Now, the difference here is you'll see three traits and they're going to be different from each other. Now, this happens because both of the parents' traits, they blend in, they mix in the offspring. And this happens because one allele or one trait is not dominant over another. So we're not going to see dominant versus recessive. We're not going to see a capital versus a lowercase. Instead, we're going to just make sure all the letters we use in the Punnett square are going to be capitalized letters, but we're going to use different letters for each trait. So in red flowers, let's say we're going to use R, two capital R's to represent the genotype. Let's say it will reproduce with a white flower. We're going to use a different letter, but we're going to capitalize it. We're going to use W's. Now, when those two parents reproduce, they'll make offspring, and it's going to be pink. It's going to be a mix of the red and the white flowers. So its genotype, it's going to get an R from the red flower parent and a W from the white flower parent. So here we have three traits, and then the offspring, that third trait, is a blend of the first two. Now remember, when we take a look at incomplete dominance, the memory clue is blend in, like mixing in. So blend in, and that's for incomplete dominance. Another type of inheritance pattern that we looked at was multiple alleles. So in multiple alleles, and we're going to be taking a look at that today, it's just when there's a gene, a part of the DNA, and it has more than two versions, more than two alleles. So for instance, for blood type, which we'll look at today, there's not just an A allele, there's not just a B allele, there's that third allele, O. And it gives us the different types of blood that people can have. Some people are type A blood, some are type B, some are type O, and then we have this other one where it's type AB, where the A and the B are together at the same time. So for today, we're going to take a look at an inheritance pattern called codominance. And in codominance, you're going to see both of the parents' traits appear together at the same time in the offspring. So where do we see this in, let's say, organisms? Well, we'll see them in the feather color of chickens. So here we have one parent that has white feathers, the other parent has black feathers. And when they have an offspring, it'll have not a mix, not gray, like you would see in incomplete dominance. You would actually see both black and white feathers together at the same time. So when you think of codominance, you're thinking co means together. Like a coworker is a person that you work with together. Or let's say a co-captain. These are captains, these are leaders of a sports team, and they lead together at the same time. So when you think of codominance, you're thinking that both of those traits are seen together at the same time because they're dominant together. So codominance, dominant together. So I'm going to show you how to set up a Punnett square with codominance word problems. And it's going to look very similar to how we set up incomplete dominance word problems. Each parent's trait's going to have their own allele or letter, and we're just going to capitalize all the letters because remember, we're not going to have a dominant versus recessive, so let's just capitalize everything. So for instance, for black feathers in chickens, we're going to use the allele or letter capital B. For white feathers, the allele or letter we're going to use would be a different letter. We're going to use W, and we're going to capitalize it. Now, when we have a black and white feathered chicken, we're going to have the genotype, the two letters, it's going to be B and W. So let's look at the first example and make sure you fill this out in your notes. It says create a Punnett square of one black feathered chicken and one white feathered chicken. So parent 1, a black feathered chicken, would have a genotype that's two letters, would be a capital B, capital B. Now remember, I would say this is homozygous because it has two of the same alleles or letters. Parent 2 is a white feathered chicken. Now remember, we're going to use W, a capital W, to represent that, but we need two letters for its genotype. So it's going to be a homozygous, because it's the same, and it's going to be W. So one parent goes on the top, one parent goes on the left side. And just like before, we're going to fill in, we're going to bring in the alleles or letters to fill in the boxes. So what does this mean? If we have a black feathered chicken and a white feathered chicken and they reproduce, their next kid or their next offspring will have a genotype of BW 4 out of the 4 boxes or 100% of the time. Well, what's it going to look like? Okay, so remember we said BW represents black and white feathers. So their next child, their next offspring is going to have black and white feathers 4 out of 4 times or 100% of the time. So let's look at another example. So here we have two chickens and they're heterozygous. And they're going to have black and white feathers. So let's take a look at the first parent. Remember, if it's black and white feathers, it's going to be BW. Now, this genotype is heterozygous. Now remember, heterozygous means two different alleles or letters. The second parent's also heterozygous for black and white feathers, so it's also going to be BW. So same thing, one parent goes on the top of the Punnett square, the other one goes on the left side, and you're just going to fill this in. So here we have BB, and this is homozygous because they're both the same alleles or letters. The next two will be BW, and this is heterozygous. And then the last box is WW, and it's homozygous because it's the same alleles or letters. So let's take a look at the genotypes. So in here, these are what the offspring can turn out to be. So these black and white feathered chickens can have an offspring that is homozygous B, and it happens in one of the 4 boxes or 25%. They can have a BW offspring, and that can happen 2/4 of the time or 50%, or they can have an offspring that has WW and it's 1/4 or 25%. What does that mean in terms of the physical traits? Well, we already said BB represents black feathers, and I can see that in 1 out of 4 boxes or 25%. And BW represents black and white feathers, so that's in 2 of the 4 boxes or 50%. And then white feathers is going to be in 1 of the 4 boxes or 25%. Another example where we would see codominance would be in humans and their blood type. So I already talked about how there are 3 different alleles for blood type. You can have an A allele, a B allele, or an O allele. Now the A and B alleles are codominant. That means when you see them together, they're going to be dominant together at the same time. So let's say a person gets an A allele from one parent, and then they get a B allele from the other parent. Their blood type will be AB because, like I said, A and B are dominant together. Well, what about the O allele? So O allele is recessive compared to A or B. So that means O will be overpowered. So what I want us to do is I want us to fill out the chart that's in your notes, and here we're going to figure out what are the different blood types and what alleles are needed. So let's say let's say one parent can give an A allele, a B allele, or an O allele. Let's say the other parent, let's say the dad, there's different alleles here that can be given, A, B, or an O. So we're going to find out each box represents the genotype, and the phenotype, what the blood type is. So the green is the genotype, the two letters that the parents give. So let's say in this box, okay, one parent gives an A allele, the other parent gives an A allele. Well, what blood type is that? That's blood type A. Okay. Now let's take a look here. One parent gives an A allele, the other parent gives a B allele. We said that they're codominant, they're dominant together. So what blood type is that? AB. Okay, here we have one parent that gives an A allele, the other parent gives an O allele. Okay, what blood type is that? That's blood type A. Now, why is that blood type A? Because remember, O is going to be recessive compared to A. So let's take a look here. Same thing, one parent gives an A allele, one parent gives a B allele, so that blood type is AB. How about here, the genotype? Each parent gives a B allele, so the blood type is B. Here, one parent gives a B allele, one parent gives an O allele, so what blood type is that? It's going to be B, because remember, O is recessive compared to not only A, but also B. So the B is going to overpower. Okay, the last group. Okay, one parent gives an A allele, one parent gives an O allele. That is blood type A, because remember, O is recessive to A. Same thing here, one parent gives a B allele, one parent gives an O allele. That's blood type B. B overpowers O. Now the last one, each parent gives an O allele, so that blood type is blood type O. So you can see there's only 4 different blood types. There's blood type A, blood type B, blood type O, and blood type AB. But there's different combinations, there's different genotypes that we can have for some of them. So we're going to take this table and we're going to simplify it. Okay, and we're going to fill out this table here. So for blood type A, I'm going to look here. What are the ways that I can write blood type A? I can write it as homozygous AA, or I can write it as AO, and this is heterozygous. Okay. What about blood type B? What are the 2 different ways that I can write blood type B? Oh, here I can write BB, which is homozygous, or I could write blood type B as heterozygous, BO. How about blood type AB? Okay, well, there's only one way to write blood type AB, and it's with an A allele and a B allele. What about blood type O? Here, there's only one way to write blood type O, and it's homozygous O. There's 2 O alleles. So when we do examples with blood types and Punnett squares, I need you to make sure you keep this table out so it can help you look at the genotypes and the blood types. So let's take a look at this example here. Okay, so here you're going to create a Punnett square where one parent is homozygous blood type B. So here we have blood type B, and then if we see here, there's 2 different genotypes to represent blood type B. But the question is saying it's homozygous blood type B. So in this case, we're going to choose this genotype, BB, because it's homozygous since it has 2 of the same alleles. Now the other parent is heterozygous blood type A. So here is blood type A, and if we see the genotype, there are 2 different genotypes, but heterozygous would be AO, because remember, heterozygous means 2 different alleles. So now that we have the parents' genotypes, one parent is going to go on the top of the Punnett square and the other is going to go on the left side. And now you're just going to use those letters to fill in the insides of the Punnett square to see what the offspring would be for its genotype and its blood type or phenotype. So here we have the genotype AB, and I see that it's in 2 of the 4 boxes. But remember, I want it in percent. The question is asking for percent. So AB, that genotype, is 50%. Now, BO, that genotype, I see it in another box, so it's going to be 2 out of 4, or it should be 50%. Now we're taking a look at the blood types, or in other words, the phenotypes. Now, AB represents blood type AB, so it's going to be 50%. Now, these 2 genotypes represent B-type blood. because remember the O is recessive to B. So the B is going to show. So it's going to be blood type B 50%. We have create a Punnett square where it's one parent, it's going to be heterozygous blood type B. So here we have a blood type B, but there's two genotypes for it. And we're going to choose BO as the correct genotype because these are two different alleles, so that's heterozygous. And then the other parent is AB blood type. So here there's AB blood type. There's only one way to write the genotype, which is AB. So you're going to fill out the outsides of the Punnett square, and then you're going to go ahead and fill in the insides to see what the offspring might turn out to be in terms of genotypes. Now here I have all of the 4 genotypes are all different. I don't see any duplicates. So we're going to just list them out. AB happens 25%, AO 25%, BB and BO both 25%. What are the blood types or phenotypes? Okay, well AB, that represents AB blood. And I only see that in one of the 4 boxes, or since we're in percent, 25%. Here, AO, what blood type does that represent? Well, remember, O is recessive to A, so it's going to show the blood type is A. Now, I don't see that in any of the other 2 boxes, so it's 25%. Now, these 2 boxes, they both have a B allele. And remember, O is recessive compared to B. So both of these boxes will represent blood type B. That's why it's 50%. So the last type of inheritance pattern that we're going to look at is called polygenic traits. And if we break down the word polygenic, poly just means many. Genic, you can think genes. So these are traits that are controlled by 2 or more genes, 2 or more sections of the DNA. So because there's multiple sections of the DNA that give information for the traits, there's going to be lots of different types of phenotypes or physical traits. And examples of polygenic traits would be like skin color. There's lots of different skin colors, and that's because there's lots of different genes that give information for skin color. And then also there's lots of different eye colors. The reason for that is there's lots of genes, there's lots of parts of your DNA that give information for it. So we've taken a look at different inheritance patterns, polygenic traits, codominance, incomplete dominance, and complete dominance. And these are just ways that traits are passed on from parents to offspring.